Joining us now with more on the baby Alfie case is Lynn Marie Cohn. She's a professor of family law at Regent University. Welcome, Lynn Marie.
Thank you. Well, glad to be here.
Appreciate your time today. A court in the United Kingdom has ruled that Alfie's parents cannot take him to Italy for treatment, even though the Italian government has granted the toddler citizenship and a hospital there has agreed to treat him. How can a court deny parents the right to seek treatment for their child?
Mark, this is about the lethal combination of the Convention on the Rights of the Child and state universal health care. In Britain, the hospital has been paying the cost of taking care of Alfie his whole life, and that's been a while. They also have signed, they're signatories on the Convention of the Rights of the Child. That means that the child's rights are protected by the state, not by his parents. And his parents don't have any opportunity to protect his best interest. The state is doing that. And the state has determined in their courts that the best interests of Alfie are served by him dying, not by him having opportunity to live. So it's the combination of the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the state healthcare system that are keeping kids like Alfie and Charlie Gard in these situations where even though their parents want to rescue them and they have opportunities to go elsewhere, they're unable to do so because the state is in charge under the Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Well, even the European Court of Human Rights has refused to intervene. Does the EU recognize parental rights?
No, the EU recognizes the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Every nation in the world has signed it except the United States. The United States has a different system. We recognize constitutionally protected parental rights to direct the upbringing of our children. That means parents' rights and are balanced by the duty of protecting what's best for a child. So a parent has a say of how their child gets cared for medically, educationally, protected, etc. The state only steps in the United States if a parent abuses, neglects, or abandons a child. So if this child was here, if Alfie were here, his parents would indeed direct his continuing care, as long as they weren't harming him. That's not going to happen in the UK. They don't use a best interest standard. They use a Convention on the Rights of the Child standard.
Well, do Alfie's parents, Kate and Tom, do they have any legal recourse?
I don't think they do. Not under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The state member is going to be the one that is in charge here, and that's what they're doing. They're being in charge of Alfie's life here, thinking that it's in his best interest that he die. The United States has said very clearly something very different. There is no right to die, and we see that life is protected and sacred. That's not inherent in the European conventions. Those things are more about state members protecting its citizens. Very different. This thing that Charlie Gard's parents had, Alfie's parents, they want to do everything they can to protect their son. Why is that? Because God put it in their hearts. Very similar to the Solomon wise decision, 1 Kings 3, the woman that said, it's my son. And the other woman said, no, it's my son. And the king says, bring me a sword, I'll cut him in two. And which woman said, no, let her have him? That was the mother who was the true mother of the child. She said, let her have him, don't kill him. The other mother said, kill him, neither of us will have him. God has put it in parents' hearts to protect their kids. But when states step in to stop that, that makes it really impossible for the child to move forward. And that's what's happening with poor little Alfie.
Well, what's going on in the UK? I mean, it just seems so inhumane. Don't the governments recognize the role, the dignity of the individual?
They recognize the dignity of an individual, but there's limits to that. And remember, this is state health care, universal state health care, which has its limits. So when the state is in charge, it's going to decide who gets to continue to live when the resources are limited. They're not infinite. And what they're looking at is a little baby that they think can't be treated. You or I know, and the Italian government, the Vatican knows, we want to do everything we can to treat this child because we see life as so much more sacred than the cost it might bring to the people bearing the burden of that cost. When you have state health care, you don't have those choices. You don't have those choices, and parents don't have those choices to protect their kids. Very sad. This would not happen in the United States because a court in the United States is charged with allowing the parents to direct the upbringing of their children, and those parents are bound by law to do what's best in the best interests of those children. Those rules don't exist over in the UK or in any of the 192 nations who've signed the CRC. This is the reason why the United States will never sign the CRC.
Well, thankfully, that is true for the
Yes.
U.S. We'll talk about how we should be praying for baby Alfie and for his parents, Tom and Kate.
Well, I love what you said earlier. We need to pray that he's healed. We need to pray for his complete healing. I mean, I was suggesting that, wouldn't it be better if he could have a tracheotomy? He'd be more comfortable. Right now, what they're doing is they're starving him to death. He's got this little tiny tube on his nose. I'm sure you've reported on this. He is starving to death because now they've removed any hydration and food from him. I think they've allowed him to have hydration, but no food. When you are starving a person, they start losing their sight, their organs shut down. Some people would call that murder, not death with dignity. We have a notion in the United States that a person's life is sacred. That doesn't happen all over the world. We're unique because we're a Christian nation reliant on this. And our Constitution is based on that. So we have constitutional protections that guarantee that parents can protect their kids from things like this. And parents need to do that. We need to look at this example and see, wow, I have a responsibility to protect my child that poor Alfie's parents don't even get to enjoy, because they're not in a nation that understands that parents direct the upbringing of their children. It's an inalienable right from God. Justice Scalia, before he passed away, wrote a great piece in Troxel v. Grenville, the grandparents' rights case. And there he said, who am I as a judge to decide on this case? God has given these parents rights to direct how their child is going to be brought up. I shouldn't be doing it. At the same time, our Constitution has said, yes, judges have to say that parents should be protecting the rights of their children. That's where we're at now, and thankfully in the United States this would not happen. But we do just need to keep praying for Alfie. We need to pray for his parents, that they are healed and patient, and that Alfie is healed and he can come home. It's still possible. God can still do those things.
Amen. He can still work a miracle on behalf of them, that's for
Yes,
sure. And
he
also
can.
pray for the legal team of the parents
Yes.
as well. Lynn Marie Coleman, Regent University, thank you so much for your insights and helping to break it down for us.
Thank you, Mark.